Hello students, good evening all. I hope you all are doing great. So welcome to the daily news analysis series of the live streaming of the daily news articles from the ClatPrep headquarters. Today we'll be discussing the important news articles of 17th May 2022 with the educator Prithviraj Singh. So let us begin with the same. The very front page of the Hindu, you had an article about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Nepal. Well, the Prime Minister has visited to a culturally very important place, Lumbini in Nepal. Well, Lumbini is also the birthplace of Prince Siddharth, who later became Gautam Buddha. So Lumbini holds cultural importance to India because Gautam Buddha, spent his good amount of number of years in India. From Lumbini, where he was born, he went to Bodh Gaya, where he actually experienced enlightenment. So yesterday also we discussed the same, LBSK, and it is in the sequential order. L is Lumbini, which is the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. B is Bodh Gaya, the place where Gautam Buddha experienced enlightenment. Sarnath is a place where he delivered his first sermon. First sermon means first teaching after experiencing enlightenment was delivered at a place called as Sarnath in India. And then Kushinagar. Kushinagar is also a place in India where Gautam Buddha experienced Mahanirvana, right? So LBSK. Now Prime Minister is, and the central government is planning to build a Buddhist circuit of these places, Lumbini, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath and Kushinagar. Now in Lumbini, which is, as I said, is a birthplace of Gautam Buddha, here a Buddhist center would be developed by India as promised by the central government of India. And to mark the 2566th Buddha Jayanti, Prime Minister visited Nepal, Lumbini. As I said, that Lumbini is in Nepal. Now there he has actually, the government has declared that they would be building up India International Center for Buddhist Culture and Heritage in the Lumbini monastic zone. So because Lumbini is a birthplace of Gautam Buddha, so वहाँ पे Indian government is planning investment by building India International Center, also called as Buddhist Center. तो इससे इंडिया की एक स्पिरिचुअल जो है लिंक्स बनेंगे नेपाल से, क्योंकि we know that Nepal has slightly slipped off our hands, especially post the interference of the Indian government in its constitutional drafting, plus the blockade that happened in the year 2015. Nepal actually was tilting towards China, and China has huge investment in Nepal. But at the time when Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Nepal are experiencing economic crisis, this is an opportune time for the Indian government to to encash this opportunity, and rightly so. Prime Minister Modi has visited the place Lumbini, and there is a place in Lumbini, there is a spot called as Maya Devi Temple. Now in Maya Devi Temple is being revered as the precise place of birth of Prince Siddharth, who later became Gautam Buddha. So Maya Devi Temple. Now they may ask you the question that who is the present Prime Minister of Nepal? So he is Sher Bahadur Devba. Sher Bahadur Devba. And you will be remembering, students, that recently he also visited India, and so therefore there is an increased interaction between the two countries, which is a positive sign. So in this sense, Center for Buddhist Culture and Heritage would be developed, would be allocated to the International Buddhist Confederation. I hope you are getting my point. Moving ahead, the government of Nepal and India has also signed a deal of building a hydroelectric or hydropower project, Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam and Nepal Electricity Authority. So Nepal mein there is an electricity authority called as NEA or Nepal Electricity Authority, and in India there is an authority called as Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam, SJVN. So it is the MOU is being signed, an agreement is being signed between SJVN and NEA, and they would be developing a very important hydropower project, Arun 4 on Arun River. Arun 4, it is the fourth stage of the Arun hydropower project, right? So therefore it is very, very important, guys. Arun 4 hydropower project. So the question may be asked that recently Prime Minister Modi and the Prime Minister of Nepal, Sher Bahadur Deuba, has inked a hydropower project deal. Which among the following is the name of that project? So it is Arun 4 in Nepal, right? So it is a run of the river project because the electricity would be generated by the the course of the river. Now the project is expected to generate electricity for Nepal, India, और केवल नेपाल इंडिया तक ही नहीं, बांग्लादेश वुड ऑल्सो बी द बेनिफिशियरी. ये बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है स्टूडेंट्स, क्योंकि जनरली हमें ये लगता है कि इफ देयर इज एनी हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट डील बिटवीन इंडिया एंड नेपाल तो मतलब जो बेनिफिशियरी वो इंडिया होगा, बट ऐसा नहीं है. इवन बांग्लादेश इज अ बेनिफिशियरी. यू मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड गाइज दैट नेपाल इज अ लैंड लॉक्ड कंट्री. नेपाल इज अ लैंड लॉक्ड कंट्री और उसके सारे जो इंपोर्ट्स होते हैं वो बहुत सारे ज़्यादातर इंपोर्ट्स हैं इंडिया के थ्रू जाते हैं, राइट, इवन पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स. So this project, Arun 4 hydropower project, has huge potential to emerge as a major source of energy in South Asian region, right? So very important. और यहाँ पे SGVN का शेयर 51% है, NEA का शेयर 49% है, correct. At the same time, Sher Bahadur Deuba, who is the Prime Minister of Nepal, has also said that, and also in fact invited Indian companies to come and invest in West Seti hydropower project in Nepal. तो ये एक और एक हाइड्रोपावर प्रोजेक्ट है नेपाल में, called as West Seti hydropower project. So it is under deliberation, under consideration stage, and although Prime Minister Modi has assured Nepal of India's continued support for the developmental and energy projects, right? So you have to remember Arun 4 hydropower project, which has already been signed between SJVN and NEA, plus West Seti hydropower project, and the beneficiaries of Arun 4 is India, Nepal and Bangladesh, plus the Lumbini, the place Lumbini, which has Maya Devi temple, which is also being revered as the exact birthplace of Prince Siddharth, who later became Gautam Buddha. We also talked about the Buddhist circuit, Lumbini, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath and Kushinagar. So very, very important, guys. It would lead to a new horizon between India and Nepal relations. We are definitely culturally, economically, socially bound to each other. We share mythological history of Ram and Sita. And Prime Minister Modi also said the same, that Nepal is, we share a very long history with Nepal. This is a pictorial representation of Arun 4 hydropower project, and Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister of Nepal, Sher Bahadur Deuba, on the screen. So guys, India and Nepal has a treaty of peace and friendship which was signed in the year 1950. And because we share similar ties in terms of Hinduism and Buddhism, right, with Buddha's birthplace Lumbini located in present day Nepal, correct. So very important. But at the same time, the past few years we have seen the relationship between the two countries have nosedived because of India's interference in the draft process, the constitutional draft process, plus the Nepal's increasing cooperation with China and the unofficial blockade of the year 2015, where was being alleged by Nepal that Indian government blocked the essential imports, including petroleum products, to Nepal. Whereas Indian government has rejected these allegations, saying that these were being blocked by Madheshi supporters. Now, Madheshi supporters were the people living in the terrain region, I mean in the plain region, and they didn't have due representation in the new constitution of Nepal. So therefore it is a good move to rebuild the relationship between India and Nepal, which already share a treaty of peace and friendship of the year 1950. Very important article, and I expect a question on India-Nepal. Moving ahead, guys. Now we know that Finland has declared that it would be joining NATO, and it would be applying for the membership to NATO. Following the same line, Sweden also had made the NATO bid official. That means the Parliament of Sweden, the cabinet has ratified that they would be joining NATO because of the uncertain and unstable European conditions. We know that it's been almost 3 months after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and there is a sense of insecurity among the Nordic countries, including Finland, Norway, Sweden. And Finland and Sweden have already declared their intentions to join NATO, a collective security alliance, military alliance of the capitalist bloc, which came into being in the year 1949. Today it has how many members? Can you please comment in the group? What is the present strength of NATO? And who is the General Secretary of NATO? So there are, as you said, there are 30 members, and the Secretary is John Stoltenberg. So Sweden has declared that it would be joining NATO very soon, and it would reverse 2 centuries of military non-alignment. Students, Sweden actually was militarily neutral. It was following a policy of neutrality since 2 centuries, for the past 200 years. We'll understand what was the reason why it was neutral. But a very important move for a country who has remained neutral for the past 200 years. So it shows the gravity of the matter, and it is being seen as a move, as a deterrent against the Russian aggression. Well, Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson has declared that Sweden would be joining NATO and would be applying for the membership of NATO. Very important, guys, on the screen, Sweden's Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson. So they may ask you the question, and there is very high probability of it being asked in the examination, that who is the present Prime Minister of Sweden? So she is Magdalena Andersson. Prime Minister Modi recently met the Premier of Sweden, Norway, Finland at the Indo-Nordic Summit in his tour to Europe. So Magdalena Andersson is the present Prime Minister of Sweden. Very important, and Sweden is very much aware that it may trigger a response from Moscow, but then Moscow has also said that any expansion of the military infrastructure would see a retaliation, right? But then Mr. Putin, who is the president of Russia, has said during a televised summit meeting of CSTO, or Collective Security Treaty Organization, is a counter to NATO. So CSTO is a group of countries which support Russia. It is also a Collective Security Treaty Organization. It's a military alliance, whereas NATO is a group of countries which support America and its capitalist ideology. Right. So very important, and we already had a session, DNA session on CSTO. Well, Sweden will be subjected, for example, to disinformation. There would be definitely disinformation attempts, attempt to scare and divide us. But Stockholm had received security assurances from several key partners, and Magdalena Andersson is expecting that it should not take more than a year to join NATO. Right, so a very important move. So you can see the Finland Prime Minister Sanna Marin, right? Sanna Marin, whom Prime Minister Modi recently met when he was on Europe tour. So Sanna Marin, they may ask you the question, because Finland had already declared that they would be joining the NATO, right? So Finland Prime Minister is Sanna Marin, as you can see on the screen. So this is the NATO's expansion since 1997. So the dark blue countries are, those countries which joined NATO before 1997, correct? So UK and all these countries joined NATO before 1997, and in blue are those countries which joined NATO after 1997, which includes many countries like Poland, etc. Now we have already had a session on NATO on 13th May DNA session, so you can always refer this session for more clarification, for more details about NATO. Well, students, as I said, that Sweden has avoided military alliance for more than 200 years. Sweden was militarily neutral for more than 200 years, and Finland adopted neutrality after it got defeated by the Soviet in the World War II. Well, Finland was defeated by the Soviet forces in the year 1939 when the Second World War started. So since then Finland is neutral and Sweden is neutral for more than 200 years. So therefore it is a very, very big move by when the two countries have declared their aspirations to join NATO. Well guys, Swedish neutrality refers to Sweden's former policy of neutrality in armed conflicts. That means Sweden किसी भी armed conflict के अंदर on its own it would not wage a war and it would always remain neutral, and which was in effect from the early 19th century until 2009. अब ये 1808 वगैरह के अंदर in 19th century, the early 19th century, उसमें Sweden was involved into Napoleonic wars, because Napoleon Bonaparte was the emperor of France from 1800 till 1815, और उस समय जो है Napoleonic wars हुए थे जिसमें Sweden was involved, and in these wars Sweden was heavily involved, and during which over a third of the Sweden's territory was lost, right? So 1/3 of the Swedish territory was being lost to Napoleonic wars, was lost in the Finnish war, including the traumatic loss of Finland to Russia. So even Finland was being lost to Russia. So इसके बाद Sweden declared that it would remain militarily neutral. Now from 1800 till 2009 it was completely neutral, but in 2009 it actually joined the European Union, and in this way it entered into various mutual defense treaties, although not NATO, but there are various mutual defense treaties which actually started applying on Sweden and other Nordic countries, right? अब उसके बाद from this point onwards Finland remained a part of Russia. So 1808 से ले तक it remained a part of Russia until it gained independence in the year 1917, right? So Finland gained independence in the year 1917 post the abdication of Tsar Nicholas and the Russian Revolution. Finland also gained independence, right? And since the time of Napoleonic wars, Sweden has not initiated any direct armed conflict. इन्होंने कभी भी direct armed conflict students नहीं wage किया है. However, Sweden's military and government have been involved in major peacekeeping actions and other military support functions around the world. The accession to the European Union in 1995 meant that neutrality as a principle was abolished. Right? तो इसका मतलब the crux of this slide is that Sweden was militarily neutral for 200 years, right? And it happened after the Napoleonic Wars, where it lost its 1/3 of the territory. I said that Napoleon Bonaparte was the emperor of France from 1801 till 1815. In 1815, he was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo. And in these Napoleonic Wars, Sweden was heavily involved. Sweden lost its 1/3 of its territory, and in the Finnish War, and even Finland lost to Russia. And Finland, remained in the hands of Russia till the year 1917, when it got independence. So in this way, Sweden was militarily neutral for the past 200 years, and this declaration of joining NATO is very, very important, critical, and it holds high importance. So in this sense, Sweden was neutral and non-aligned, and Sweden's neutrality during the Second World War has much been debated. तो ऐसे कई डिबेट्स है, ऐसे कई एलिगेशंस है कि स्वीडन न्यूट्रल तो था, बट देन ऑल्सो इट हैड इट्स इन्वॉल्वमेंट इन द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर. ऐसे कहते हैं कि स्वीडन ने नाजी जर्मनी को शिप्स वगैरह में आयरन ओर एक्सपोर्ट्स किए थे. सो स्वीडन एक्सपोर्टेड आयरन ओर टू नाजी जर्मनी, इंक्लूडिंग स्टील, machine parts, and provided transportation for armed German reinforcement troops. Right? That means जो German reinforcement troops थे उनको भी transportation was being provided by Sweden. Sweden also was involved in the iron ore shipments. So because war is being fought with logistic supply, it requires iron ore, it requires steel, it requires arms and ammunitions. So the core of the arms and ammunition, which is iron and steel, was coming from the Swedish reserves, iron ore reserves. Steel and machine parts were also being supplied by Sweden, to the Nazi Germany. Plus, it was providing the transportation of the armed German reinforcement troops, right? And this was the primary reason for Great Britain and the Alliance to launch Operation Wilfred and Norwegian campaign in early 1940s. अब क्योंकि स्वीडन वैसे मिलिटरली न्यूट्रल है, बट क्योंकि इट वाज असिस्टिंग नाजी जर्मनी इन द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर बाय सप्लाइंग आयरन ओर शिपमेंट्स, प्रोवाइडिंग ट्रांसपोर्टेशन टू द आर्म्ड जर्मन रीइंफोर्समेंट्स, इस वजह से ग्रेट ब्रिटेन लॉन्च ऑपरेशन विल्फ्रेड and Norwegian campaign. Very, very important, students, for all the guys who are preparing for law, SSC, UPSC exams. So in early 1940s, Great Britain started or launched an operation called as Operation Wilfred and Norwegian campaign, and by early June 1940 the Norwegian campaign stood as a failure for the Allies. That means the Norwegian campaign was a failure, and by securing access to Norwegian ports by force, the Nazis were able to obtain the Swedish iron ore. तो ये ऑपरेशन जो था ये फेल हो गया, और इसके बाद नाजी फोर्सेस ने स्वीडिश आयरन they seized the port and they obtained the Swedish iron ore it needed for war production, even with British naval blockade still in place. तो ब्रिटिश नेवल ब्लॉकेड ऑलरेडी था, उसके बाद भी जर्मन फोर्सेस ने वो पोर्ट ये इस ऑपरेशन को फेल किया, एंड दे वर सक्सेसफुल in actually procuring the iron ore shipments or iron ore reserves from Sweden, and in this way post this it was definitely. So in this sense Sweden had its role in the Second World War, although it was politically militarily neutral and non-aligned, but its involvement in the Second World War is much debated. Well, now we know that Sweden has applied to join the NATO, ending its neutrality, ending its in fact 200 years neutrality. So very, very important article on Sweden and its ambitions to join NATO. I hope it is clear. So this is how the Finland and Sweden share their border. I mean, Finland, exact to be precise, shares 1340 kilometer border with Russia. As you can see, Finland has a huge long border with Russia, and its capital is Helsinki, whereas Sweden do not directly share its border with Russia, but then it is located in a crucial and strategically important Baltic Sea. Its capital is Stockholm. Now, Gotland was also under the occupation of Russia, and for many years Sweden, didn't was in. I mean, Gotland was in abeyance, and Swedish forces was not in hold of Gotland, and the Swedish army for 2 years, after 2 years, it returned to the small but strategically important island Gotland after abandoning it for 2 decades. So for almost 2 decades, 20 years, it was in Russian occupation, and definitely post that Swedish forces reoccupied Gotland. At the same time, as you see, Kaliningrad, now it's a Russian enclave where Russia has stationed its armed personnel, and it's being alleged that if Finland and Sweden would join NATO, then Russia may use Kaliningrad as a nuclear base. It may install the nuclear facilities at Kaliningrad so that Sweden and Finland would be in its close proximity, would it in close reach, and it can take the military actions over Finland and Sweden. At the same time, Stockholm archipelago issue was also there in 2014, where the Swedish were transfixed by reports that a Russian submarine was lurking in the shallow waters of Stockholm archipelago. So in this sense, Russia has also violated its territorial waters. It has violated its airspace. There has been airspace violations by the Russian military aircrafts, and definitely the case of Gotland. So very, very important. They may ask you Gotland, where it is located. It is located in Baltic Sea. अब देखिए students, यहाँ पे you have to understand that if Sweden and Finland goes to NATO, तो ये जो Baltic Sea जो है, इसके ऊपर NATO can post its warships, its naval warships, submarines, and its military infrastructure can be directly set up in Baltic Sea. और Baltic Sea से directly Russia के reach में होगा, right? It would be in very close proximity with Russia. So therefore, Russia would never want Finland and Sweden slipping into the hands of NATO. So Russia may retaliate as claimed by President Putin. Moving to the next news article, guys. Now there has been a lot of news about Gyanvapi Masjid, Gyanvapi Mosque. वहाँ पे recently 5 women have filed petition that a Hindu structure existed near Gyanvapi Masjid. They are claiming that a Shivling is there and a temple, Mata's temple, is there. Now, the court of Varanasi appointed a commissioner, video inspection, appointed a commissioner, a court commissioner, to do the video inspection of the masjid. And in the video inspection, it was being found, it is being claimed by these 5 Hindu women petitioners that Shivling is being found in the ablution water tank. Now, ablution water tank is a wastage water tank, a sanitary water tank. It's a wastage water tank, and they claim that Shivling structure of a good, solid Shivling structure is lying there in the ablution water tank. Now, this has raised controversies, and even I was just traveling to the institute, and I listened to the news article at the live news that even the commissioner, the court commissioner, is being suspended because it's being alleged that he has leaked the reports before it was being scheduled. So in this sense, the caretakers of the mosque are saying that it is not Shivling but a part of a stone fountain in the wazu khana or ablution tank of the mosque. So let us understand the issue. Well, Gyanvapi Masjid was built in the year 1669 by the Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. तो यहाँ पे 1669 में जो मुगल रूलर थे औरंगजेब, उन्होंने ज्ञानवापी म्यूजियम को बिल्ड किया था. एंड इट्स बीइंग सेड दैट ही डेमोलिश्ड द एंशिएंट विश्वेश्वर टेम्पल. जो एक पुराना विश्वेश्वर टेम्पल वहाँ पे था, उसको डेमोलिश किया, उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करके उसके ऊपर मॉस्क बनाया गया. इट्स एज इट इज बीइंग सेड. एंड इवन इन सकीब खान्स बुक यासीर आलमगिरी, in that book also it is mentioned that Aurangzeb had demolished the temple in the year 1669 by ordering governor Abul Hasan. तो ये इस बुक के अंदर ऑलरेडी mentioned है कि this temple, Vishweshwar temple, did existed at a place where Gyanvapi mosque was being built by Aurangzeb. And the case of Gyanvapi mosque is there in the court since the year 1991. तो 1991 से अभी तक कोर्ट के अंदर अटका हुआ है ये केस. एंड इन द सेम कोर्ट इन वाराणसी 5 women filed a petition demanding to worship in the temple of Mother Gauri temple at Gyanvapi mosque. They say that there is a temple structure of Gauri Mata temple, accepting which the court constituted a commission to present the status of the Gauri temple. और उन्होंने जो कोर्ट कमिश्नर है वो डेप्यूट किया, जिसकी वीडियोग्राफी होगी, और आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया से जो है टीम वुड डू द सर्वे ऑफ द स्ट्रक्चर. नाउ वी मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड इन दिस डिस्प्यूट द रिलीजियस प्लेसेस एक्ट ऑफ द ईयर 1991. नाउ द मुस्लिम साइड सेज दैट नो डिसीजन कैन बी गिवन ऑन द अंडर द रिलीजियस प्लेसेस एक्ट ऑफ 1991. अब जो रिलीजियस प्लेसेस एक्ट ऑफ 1991 है, इसको टेक्निकली इट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग कॉल्ड एज प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट 1991. ठीक है स्टूडेंट्स, तो इट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग कॉल्ड एज प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट 1991. और इसके अंडर इट इज प्रोहिबिटेड टू कन्वर्ट अ प्लेस ऑफ वर्शिप इवन its clause into a place of worship of a different religious denomination or a different class of the same religious denomination. That means under the Religious Places Act of the year 1991 कोई भी place of worship को आप दूसरी community के लिए आप जो है it cannot be converted, right? In this sense the place of worship cannot be converted into a place of worship of different religious community or a different class of same religious denomination. So even same religious denomination के अंदर भी different classes होती है, right? उसके अंदर भी you cannot convert the religious place, और दूसरे religious community के लिए भी it cannot be converted, right? So Places of Worship Act ये कहता है, right? अब you would be wondering that how Ram Janmabhoomi temple case actually transferred the Babri Masjid into a Hindu site. So it was being clearly said in this act that the disputed site of Ayodhya, Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid, was exempted from the act. Correct? तो ये एक important take away है, and the Muslim side is saying that the Hindu religious community cannot go ahead with worshipping at Gyanvapi Masjid because of the Religious Places Act 1991, which says that the place of worship cannot be converted to a different religious place of worship. I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article, guys. On the screen, Kerala did nothing for endosulfane victims, as said by the Supreme Court of India. Well, 5 years back, Kerala government ordered the supply of endosulfane as insecticide. It was being used as insecticide, and it was being sprayed over the crops as an insecticide without actually assessing its negative consequences, its harmful effects. And late, after a few years, it was being found that many people lost their lives because of the bioaccumulation. Many children were being born with deformity, and such aerial spray of endosulfane was being done on the cashew plantations at Kasargod in Kerala, where endosulfane pesticide exposure took place and many people were affected. Now, a breach of the top court's 2019-17 judgment, which had ordered it to pay rupees 5 lakh each to the victims in 3 months. अभी तक कोर्ट ने 2017 के जजमेंट में ये क्लियर किया था कि हर एक विक्टिम को 5 लाख रुपए 5 लाख रुपीस मिलने चाहिए विद इन 3 मंथ्स, बट अभी तक किसी को नहीं मिला है. एंड इट्स बीइंग सेड दैट only 8 out of 3,704 victims have been paid the compensation. मतलब almost 4,000 victims में से केवल 8 have been compensated, right? So it is a very important case where Supreme Court has slammed the Kerala government for doing virtually nothing for endosulfane pesticide exposure victims. Let us understand, guys, endosulfane, a very important article. Endosulfane is an organochlorine insecticide which was first introduced in 1950s, or commonly it is being traded by the name Theoden. तो ये क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है. It is very important that what is the common commercial name or trade name for endosulfane? So it is called as Theoden. So commercially it is being sold as Theoden. Now, spraying on crops like cotton, cashew, because cashew is grown in Karnataka, Kerala, because there is a laterite soil there. Fruits, tea, paddy, tobacco for control of pests such as whiteflies, aphids, beetles, worms, etc. Now, what is the impact of endosulfane? Let us understand. The endosulfane in environment gets accumulated in food chains. तो जो फूड चेन होती है उसके अंदर ये accumulate हो जाता है. लेट्स से उसको कंज्यूम किया एक डेयर ने, डेयर को कंज्यूम किया जो है एनिमल ने, लेट्स से लायन ने या टाइगर ने, एंड देन इस तरीके से फूड चेन चलती है. तो इट गेट्स accumulated in the food chain leading to higher doses causing problems. It is also being said that वो bio accumulation भी होता है. It gets seeped into the the water resources, into the land, and then it enters into the groundwater and then goes into the wells and the rivers, and then if you consume it you would be affected. So that is called as bioconcentration in aquatic organisms, right? So it is very harmful, and Supreme Court of India has already banned it. The manufacture, sale, use and export of endosulfane has already been banned because of its harmful health effects, and it was being banned in the year 2015. Plus, endosulfane is also listed under both Rotterdam Convention on the PIC or prior informed consent. तो ये Rotterdam Convention के अंदर भी it is being listed. Plus, it is also being listed under Stockholm Convention. Stockholm again is the capital of, अभी हमने पढ़ा किसकी capital है ये? Comment the answers in the comment box. Is the capital of Sweden, right? So Stockholm Convention on POC or persistent organic pollutants, इनको POC भी बोला जाता है students. So Stockholm Convention on persistent organic pollutants plus Rotterdam Convention on prior informed consent, PIC. We'll understand what is PIC and POC, right? तो अभी दो चीजें ध्यान रखिए, एक तो Rotterdam Convention और एक Stockholm Convention. इन दोनों ही के अंदर ये it is being listed as a very harmful chemical. Now, coming to Rotterdam Convention of the year 1998. So it was signed in the year 1998, and the convention aims to promote cooperation and responsibility sharing measures among different countries dealing with trade in hazardous chemicals and pesticides. मतलब जो भी केमिकल्स, hazardous chemicals और पेस्टिसाइड के अंदर कोई भी ट्रेड अगर होता है तो इट वुड बी बैंड अंडर रॉटरडैम कन्वेंशन, करेक्ट. एंड प्रायर इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट और PIC is the main feature of the Rotterdam Convention of the year 1998, and it means that it is legally binding on the party members. जो भी इसके अंदर पार्टी मेंबर्स हैं उसके ऊपर ये लीगली बाइंडिंग होगा. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्रायर इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट, PIC. Now PIC facilitates information exchange about nature and trade related information, also called as TRIPS, amongst the party members. The convention creates obligations for the implementation of the prior informed consent procedure, right? So very important, students, endosulfane. Now coming to the Stockholm Convention, as you can see, it was signed in the year 2001 and it aims to reduce the concentration of POPs. POPs are persistent organic pollutants, which are chemical substances that not only remain in the atmosphere for longer periods but also possess the ability to bioaccumulate. तो वो organic pollutants or persistent organic pollutants or POPs which not only remain in the atmosphere but they also have the ability to bioaccumulate. And the convention listed 12 POPs as dirty dozen. तो ये 12 POPs इस स्टॉकहोम कन्वेंशन ने लिस्ट किए हैं, और क्योंकि ये 12 है इस वजह से इसको डर्टी डजन या डर्टी डजन भी कहा जाता है, राइट. तो वो ऑर्गेनिक पोल्यूटेंट्स जो कि लंबे समय तक एटमॉस्फेयर में रहते हैं, प्लस दे हैव द एबिलिटी टू बायो एक्यूमुलेट, आर कॉल्ड एज POPs or persistent organic pollutants, and there are 12 in number, also called as dirty dozen. करेक्ट. तो एंडोसल्फेन जो है रॉटरडैम कन्वेंशन की लिस्ट में भी आता है 1998 की, और स्टॉकहोम कन्वेंशन लिस्ट 2001 के अंदर भी इट कम्स. मूविंग टू नेक्स्ट न्यूज आर्टिकल ऑन द स्क्रीन. Students, this article on the screen talks about the position of the CDS or Chief of Defence Staff. We all know that the first Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, passed away. He was killed in the helicopter crash a few months back, and now the government is actually deliberating over the reform in the role of CDS, Chief of Defence Staff. They are in deliberation. They are looking to streamline the CDS post and the functions of Department of Military Affairs. Now let us understand the functions of CDS, why it was created, and why the government is looking for the reforms. Now CDS as a post is abbreviated as Chief of Defence Staff, as you can see, and it was aimed to bring in tri-service synergy. देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, जो करगिल वॉर हुआ था 1998 के अंदर, उसके अंदर it was being seen that there was lack of coordination between the three wings of the armed forces. There was lack of coordination between Army, Air Force and the Navy. Although the Navy was not directly involved, but then there was definitely lack of coordination between Air Force and Army. So it was realized that a person should be, an officer should actually be there at the helm of the affairs, who would be regulating, all the three armed forces. So in order to bring the tri-service synergy and integration, the post of Chief of Defence Staff was created in the year 2019, and the government took the decision to create the post of CDS. And in December 2019, the first CDS was being appointed, General Bipin Rawat. He is no more with us, but this post holds its importance much more than before. Now this post was a 4-star general with salary and perquisites equivalent to a service chief. मतलब it is a 4-star general post with perquisites equivalent to a service chief. He also acts as a principal military advisor to the defense minister. तो डिफेंस मिनिस्टर का कोई अगर प्रिंसिपल मिलिट्री एडवाइजर है या PMA है तो वो CDS है. प्लस ही इज ऑल्सो द प्रिंसिपल मिलिट्री एडवाइजर टू He is also the permanent chairman of the Chiefs of the Staff Committee, COSC. देखिए, हर आर्म्ड फोर्सेस का चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ होता है, आर्म्ड फोर्सेस का चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ होता है, एयरफोर्स एंड नेवी के भी चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ्स होते हैं, एंड इट इज़ द हाईएस्ट पोजीशन इन द थ्री विंग्स ऑफ द आर्म्ड फोर्सेस. और इन सबके जो कोऑर्डिनेशन जो करता है, जिसका सिनर्जी लाने की कोशिश करता है, वो उसको CDS एज ए पोजीशन कहा जाता है. सो ही इज़ द परमानेंट चेयरमैन ऑफ द चीफ ऑफ द स्टाफ कमेटी. एंड अब CDS बनाने के लिए गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने जो डिफेंस मिनिस्ट्री है उसके अंदर एक नया डिपार्टमेंट बनाया, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मिलिट्री अफेयर्स, जिसको हेड करेगा CDS, चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ. जबकि ऑलरेडी एक डिपार्टमेंट था, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ डिफेंस. देखिए, हर मिनिस्ट्री के अंदर, जैसे अगर इफ आई टॉक अबाउट द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस, एवरी मिनिस्ट्री हैज डिपार्टमेंट्स. फॉर द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ईज, Ministry of Defense has 5 departments, and one such department is Department of Defense, and a new department was created called as Department of Military Affairs, and it was being headed by the Chief of Defense Staff, CDS. तो अब यहाँ पे ये एक प्रॉब्लम देखने को आ रही है कि there is overlapping between the functions of DMA and Department of Defense. Now DMA or Department of Military Affairs was created as the 5th department in the Ministry of Defense, with the CDS functioning as its secretary. तो secretary जो है वो CDS होगा इस department का, and the broad mandate of the CDS includes bringing about jointness in operations, logistics, transport, training. तो सारा जो ट्राई सर्विस सिनर्जी जो है, हमने जो यहाँ पे बात करी थी ट्राई सर्विस सिनर्जी, जिसमें सारी लॉजिस्टिक सिनर्जी, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, ट्रेनिंग, सपोर्ट सर्विसेज, कम्युनिकेशन, ऑपरेशंस, repair, maintenance of all the 3 services would be coordinated and handled by the Chief of Defense Staff, CDS. As I said that he is the principal military advisor to the Defense Minister on all the tri-service matters and will not exercise any military command including over the 3 service chiefs. तो ये चीज़ एक important है, which is something which you have to keep in mind, that CDS cannot exercise any military command. He cannot call the war to start, right? He does not exercise any military command. ऐसा नहीं है कि he is in the position to declare a war and would, give command to the Navy or the Air Force or the military, and they would wage a war. So in this sense, he does not exercise any military command, including over the 3 service chiefs. And in this sense, it was being created to bring jointness in operations, including thorough establishment of joint theatre commands. ऐसे joint theatre commands होते हैं, North Command, East Command, so on and so forth. The CDS will also evaluate the plans for out of area contingencies, मतलब इंडिया के बाहर, और HADR, Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief. तो ये HADR से रिलेटेड जो भी टास्क हैं, जैसे कोई साइक्लोन हुआ कहीं पे पास में, उसके अंदर ह्यूमैनिटेरियन असिस्टेंस चाहिए, रिलीफ असिस्टेंस चाहिए, या कोई अर्थक्वेक हुआ नेपाल के अंदर, वहाँ पे कोई HADR चाहिए, ह्यूमैनिटेरियन असिस्टेंस एंड डिजास्टर रिलीफ चाहिए, उसके अंदर भी द CDS would evaluate the plans, plus he would also be there planning for the out of area contingencies. So in this sense, it is a specialized tri-service divisions, the special operations, defense, cyber, very important. डिफेंस का जो पूरा साइबर है, डिफेंस का स्पेस है, ट्राई सर्विस ऑपरेशंस, स्पेशल ऑपरेशंस, दे ऑल वुड बी ब्रॉट अंडर द एम्बिट ऑफ CDS. तो ये दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, द डिफेंस साइबर एंड द डिफेंस स्पेस. Interestingly, students, while the capital procurements are still with the DOD, which is Department of Defense, the prioritization is with the CDS. मतलब capital procurement जो होता है डिफेंस के लिए, वो होता तो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ डिफेंस के पास है, बट उसमें क्या प्रायोरिटीज़ है, पहला किसको देना चाहिए, किस विंग को देना चाहिए, आर्मी को, एयरफोर्स को या नेवी को, किस कमांड में देना है, वो सारा प्रायोरिटाइजेशन करेगा CDS, चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ. एट द सेम टाइम the CDS would also be there looking for the indigenous defense manufacturing, because we know that the government is going ahead with the Atmanirbharta in defense, where they are reducing their dependence on the foreign defense imports. We know although that around 60 to 70% of arms import come from Russia, but then India is reducing its dependence over the foreign countries, especially Russia, and therefore they have started Atmanirbhar defense campaign where indigenous defense manufacturing industry would be set up. Now the question is why there is rethink, why the government is actually talking about the reform of the CDS and the Department of Military Affairs. The one reason is that there is very much overlap between Department of Defense and Department of Military Affairs. There is a rethink, and it in itself wasn't enough. So in this sense, the CDS appointment is itself not enough, and there are several issues with respect to roles and responsibilities, issues of equivalence among others. There is also dichotomy in the roles and responsibilities with the several hats worn by CDS. So CDS is wearing several hats. He is the principal military advisor to the defense minister. He is the secretary to the Department of Military Affairs. He is taking care of the defense cyber and defense space. Plus, he is also, the principal military advisor to the defense minister on all the tri-service matters, overall coordination of the tri-service matters, the logistics, transport, trainings, right? So in this sense, the CDS is already wearing many hats, and in this sense, the government want to rationalize this, and rationalize the roles and responsibilities of the CDS and the issues of equivalence among others. There is also dichotomy in the roles and responsibilities, and also overlap in responsibilities between the DMA and the DOD, as I just mentioned. So the government is rethinking on the ambitious timelines set for the creation of theater commands. तो थिएटर कमांड्स बनाने की टाइमलाइंस भी जो है गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड कर रही है. थिएटर कमांड्स एज आई सेड लाइक नॉर्थ थिएटर कमांड, ईस्ट, वेस्ट. So CDS with operational powers who will after due legislative changes have theater commanders report to him. So the government is thinking that the theater commanders should report to the CDS, while the service chiefs will look after the raise, train and sustain functions of respective services. तो जो डिफेंस सर्विसेज के अंदर जो थिएटर कमांड्स होते हैं जिसपे ट्राई सर्विसेज, आर्मी, नेवी एंड एयरफोर्स, वो सारी एक साथ काम करेगी और इससे इंडिया को एक इंटीग्रेटेड अप्रोच मिलेगी डिफेंस की. In this sense, we would be having a competitive edge over our immediate neighbor. और जो थिएटर कमांडर्स होंगे वो डायरेक्टली दे वुड बी रिपोर्टिंग टू द CDS. तो एक तो ये रिफॉर्म है. और सर्विस चीफ्स जो हैं डिफरेंट डिफेंस सर्विसेज के, आर्म फोर्सेस के, दे विल लुक आफ्टर द रेजिंग, ट्रेनिंग एंड सस्टेनिंग द फंक्शंस ऑफ द रिस्पेक्टिव सर्विसेज. In this direction, it is being looked at if the Chief of Integrated Defense Staff to the Chairman and the Chief of Staff Committee can function as a Secretary DMA reporting directly to the CDS. Right. तो इस तरह से स्टूडेंट्स एक इंटीग्रेटेड थिएटर कमांड्स बनाने की बात हो रही है और CDS की पोजीशन को रिफॉर्म करने की बात हो रही है, उसके फंक्शंस को बहुत और ज़्यादा रेशनलाइज करने की बात हो रही है क्योंकि बहुत ज़्यादा इट इज़ ऑलरेडी ओवरबर्डन्ड एंड देयर इज़ लॉट ऑफ कन्फ्यूजन. प्लस जो DMA, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मिलिट्री अफेयर्स और डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ डिफेंस के बीच में ओवरलैपिंग है, उसके ऊपर भी रिफॉर्म करने की बात हो रही है. राइट. सो इसी को एक्सप्लेन किया है मैंने इस आर्टिकल के अंदर कि देयर इज डायकोटोमी इन द रोल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज विद द सेवरल हैट्स वर्न बाय द CDS. अब स्टूडेंट्स इस आर्टिकल में तो नहीं मेंशन है बट इट्स बीइंग मेंशन्ड हियर इन द लाइव DNS सेशन दैट ये करगिल रिव्यू कमेटी बनी थी 1999 के अंदर एंड इट सेंट इट्स रिपोर्ट. उसमें कहा गया था कि CDS होना चाहिए क्योंकि जो कि इंटीग्रेट कर सके ट्राई सर्विसेज को. तो फर्स्ट कमेटी to propose or to recommend CDS was Kargil Review Committee of the year 1999. इसके बाद 2002 के अंदर इंटीग्रेटेड डिफेंस स्टाफ की पोजीशन बनी थी गवर्नमेंट ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स के रिकमेंडेशन पे. द गवर्नमेंट क्रिएटेड द इंटीग्रेटेड डिफेंस स्टाफ IDS in 2002 which was to eventually serve as the CDS secretariat. तो इंटीग्रेटेड डिफेंस स्टाफ तो बन गया था CDS बनने से पहले और it would eventually serve as CDS का secretariat. 2012 के अंदर नरेश चंद्र कमेटी आई थी. It recommended the appointment of a permanent chairman of the Chief of Staff Committee as a midway to eliminate apprehensions over the CDS. तो इस तरीके से नरेश चंद्र कमेटी भी CDS को मतलब they were also recommending the post of CDS and they recommended the appointment of permanent chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. इसके अलावा लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल DB शिकतकर रिटायर्ड कमेटी, सो लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल रिटायर्ड DB शिकतकर कमेटी आई थी 2016 के अंदर, उन्होंने भी पोस्ट ऑफ CDS रेकमेंड करी थी, राइट. तो ये सारी इंपॉर्टेंट कमिटीज़ है. इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर दोज स्टूडेंट्स हु आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर द UPSC एग्जामिनेशन. करगिल रिव्यू कमेटी, इंटीग्रेटेड डिफेंस स्टाफ, नरेश चंद्र कमेटी एंड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल DB शिकतकर कमेटी, इन सभी ने CDS की पोजीशन को रिकमेंड किया था in one form of or another. Now, the Department of Military Affairs will also be headed by the CDS, who will ensure the jointness in training, right? तो ये एक नई एडिशन है इस मेरे नोट्स में से. Moving ahead, as a permanent chairman of the COSC or Chief of Staff Committee, he will be a member of Defense Acquisition Council headed by Defense Minister. जो Defense Procurement होता है उसके लिए there is a council called Defense Acquisition Council, and the Defense Planning Committee DPC headed by the National Security Advisor. He will be the military advisor to the Nuclear Command Authority. बहुत important guys, the Nuclear Command Authority. So the Nuclear Command Authority is also being headed by the CDS. In fact, he is the military advisor. It's not headed by the CDS, it is being headed by the Prime Minister, but the military advisor to the Nuclear Command Authority is CDS. The post is still vacant after the sad demise of General Bipin Rawat, the first CDS of the country. So this is also a fact which you have to keep in mind, although it is not being there mentioned in the article, right? So you can just go through this article, interesting one and very important. Integrated Theatre Command. तो यहाँ पे I have explained Integrated Theatre Command. It envisages a unified command of the three services. तो three services का एक unified command है under a single commander for geographical theatres or areas that are of strategic and security concern. जैसे कि इंडिया का जो वेस्टर्न बॉर्डर है where we share the boundary with Pakistan, फिर जो नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर है where there is we share boundary with China, and the eastern border where we share boundary with Bangladesh. So these are the areas or geographical theatres of strategic and security concern. ठीक है, यहाँ पे कुछ थिएटर कमांड्स बनेंगे और इंटीग्रेटेड थिएटर कमांड्स बनेंगे जहाँ पे नेवी, एयरफोर्स एंड मिलिट्री तीनों ही जो है के बीच में सिंक्रोनाइजेशन होगा, प्रॉपर कोऑर्डिनेशन होगा, राइट. और इन्हीं को इंटीग्रेटेड थिएटर कमांड्स कहा जाता है, which are unified command of the three services under single commander, right? सिंगल कमांडर होगा, जैसे हो सकता है कि ये वेस्टर्न थिएटर हो, ये नदर्न थिएटर हो, ये ईस्टर्न थिएटर हो, इन सभी के रिस्पेक्टिव कमांडर्स होंगे और ये सब रिपोर्ट किसको करेंगे? CDS को, चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ. So this way it is very very important to bring seamless efficiency in the defense forces. So this is important. In fact, शिकतकर कमेटी जो हमने 2016 में बात करी थी, the committee has recommended the creation of 3 integrated theatre commands. The Northern Command for China border, जो कि अपन ने अभी डिस्कस किया, Western Command for Pakistan and the Southern Command for the Maritime Role. तो अभी हमने डिस्कस किया था, उसके अंदर Southern Command भी है, Southern Command, Northern Command and the Western Command. ये शिकतकर कमेटी ने 2016 के अंदर रेकमेंड किया था. इसके लिए एक पोस्ट CDS होगी और सारी जो कमांड्स है, नदर्न कमांड, वेस्टर्न एंड द सदर्न कमांड्स, द कमांडर्स वुड बी अपॉइंटेड देयर एंड दे वुड बी रिपोर्टिंग द CDS. So that's all for today, students. I hope you enjoyed the session. Stay tuned for the live DNA sessions. Press the bell icon for the live updates. Do like, comment and share. Your comments and feedbacks are very valuable for us. That's all for today. Wish you all the best. Good day. Goodbye.